Hello, everyone. If this is the first time that you're tuning into one of our webinars, I'm Francis Wade, and I'm the founder of Carib HR Forum. And welcome to our seminar geared for freelance professionals who want to launch a freelance or consulting career. And it's a pretty broad topic, but to be honest, we're taking a very deep dive because specifically we're going to be looking at the question of getting clients. So I'm going to just start sharing my screen and start getting you to do some interacting because today is going to be heavily interactive, more than usual. Let's see. Great. Can everybody see that second screen? Just type yes in that chat. Great, because I'm just going to get going. Great. So get those fingers working and practicing. I'm actually going to ask you before I get much further on to practice sending me a question. So I want you to click over. You see where it has that Q&A tab over on the right side? I want you to click on Q&A and practice sending me a question. Nothing too meaningful or anything. Just send me any old question that you could think of. I want to get your fingers working so that you can practice using Q&A. The reason is that I want to isolate questions from just general chat tonight because we're expecting quite a crowd. Are you excited to deliver this webinar this evening, Ahmad? I am very excited. Is this being graded? I can't even joke about that. No, Sean, it's not being graded. How do you get long-term clients? Wow. Simone, if I had more time, I'd go into long-term. We're just going to talk about clients. Any old clients tonight. Sharon asks, how are you? I am fine. This is a topic that I love and I wish I could speak. Oh, too many questions already. What a go on. Thanks, Julie. Not much. How are you coping with COVID-19? No, yeah, it's not that bad, actually. We're just doing what we've always been doing, which is working from home. Okay, I'm going to move on. And I'm moving on just because this is going to be a time crunch. And here's why. So for some logistics tonight, we're going to be together for 70 minutes, 65 minutes left. We're going to stay in presentation mode up until 7 Jamaica time, 8 Bahamas and Trinidad time. And then we're going to flip into a different room. So I'll give you a link if you haven't already. Oops, sorry about that. I haven't already got the link. I'm going to give you a link to a different room. So we're closing this room down and going to a different room. There we're going to be answering questions. We'll be doing some networking, and I want you to have some time to get comfortable using Remo. So we're doing a whole range of activities in the part 2. And then once the session is completely over, I want you to, if this calls to you, to apply to be in one of our free coaching circles, either learning or consulting. So what does that mean? Well, let me tell you some more about that. So the way we're managing the webinar and the topics, so any individual topic here at Carib HR Forum's webinar series is immediately led into both a coaching circle and a public discussion. So the public discussion takes place on our platform. It happens between all of our participants. And the coaching circle, however, is a private 10-person or less coaching experience, complimentary, but it's an opportunity for the coach to try out ideas as they work with some folks on really improving the area that they want to work on. And we're rolling out, as you probably know, several webinars. And, oh, that's good, that worked. And the one tonight is on consulting. The one last week was on learning. And we have several more coming up all the way leading up to our virtual conference in September. So Tracy Wallace, who presented last week on creating a rapid learning organization. So her coaching circle is now open for applications at the above link. So if you heard Tracy last week, go and check it out. You'll see information on the coaching circle and how to apply. And if you don't know what we're talking about, follow the link anyway and follow Coach Tracy over there, and you'll see what it's all about. But it's going to start on the 13th. Coming up, an announcement in a couple of weeks' time from tonight. Peter Hall will be leading our next webinar on creative and caring compensation. And this came up in response to many questions that we received and some demands from CEOs who are saying that to HR managers, I need to cut the headcount or I need to cut the payroll by 10, 15, 20%. What are you going to do about it? And Peter's a longtime HR practitioner. He was the head of HR at Diageo/Red Stripe here in Jamaica. And then he went over to Barbados and he headed up HR and then also marketing as well over at First Caribbean International Bank, CIBC. So he's going to be with us in 2 weeks' time. And in terms of future topics, we want some input from you on these. We have one plan coming up in June on branding as an HR professional. We're going to focus on the use of LinkedIn in particular and other tools in that particular webinar. How do you communicate as an HR professional after the lockdown is over and people are now coming back into the workforce and they've come back in? There's going to be some, I know, difficult conversations that need to be had. And the third topic that we're looking at is how do you reboot your company once the lockdown has been announced? So imagine you open the newspaper tomorrow and your prime minister says, lockdown is over, get back to work on Monday. And you hear the phone ring and it's your managing director calling and he says, okay, you ready? Well, this particular webinar is all about how do you reboot your company, again, from an HR perspective. So we're open to whatever other topics you may think are important and relevant leading up to September. And here's some more information in case you've never seen this before on our virtual conference coming up in September 17th to 19th. It's absolutely free and it'll be for 3 days. And right now we're up to 40 people. We have space for just 10 more. Remo caps us out at 10. I'll be giving you all the links that you need for later on. But if you're not a member of Caribbean HR Forum community, it's a good time to join. Why you get, in addition to the other things that you get, you also get to watch all the webinars. We keep the recordings in the community for people who have joined, members. And also you get priority acceptance into the coaching circles. Okay. So 2020 is a year in which we have declared that HR puts on its own mask first. So you probably know that when you're on an airplane, the instruction is do not put the oxygen mask on a minor or your loved one or your parent. Put your own mask on first because you've got to take care of yourself first. And in 2020, we want HR to reverse what we think is a decade of reversal, in which, as a result of the 2008 recession, companies stopped investing in learning and development, or they cut it down to the bare minimum, and HR's learning and development in particular got put on the back burner. So we're asking HR professionals to have this year be one where it's put on the front burner. And believe it or not, we said this before COVID, because I think COVID has shown us that the tactic of having HR not take care of its own learning first has created all kinds of issues and challenges. So that's what our year is all about. And the conference is going to focus on that theme. A bigger you, a better you is our slogan. So let's flip into the topic of the evening. How do you find clients? And this is a question that is perhaps the most popular question that I get as a consultant. And I've been in my own firm since 1993. And of all the questions that I get, there are many questions, but this one is the big one. Question, and I want some answers. Why do you think that's the question that I've gotten asked most recently, most frequently, whether I'm consulting in the US, Trinidad, Barbados, Jamaica, Bahamas? How comes? Why do people ask me? How do you get clients? Let's see some answers in the chat. There's a bit of a pause as I wait to see if fingers are working or not. Sean says, clients equal money and people care about money. So they're really asking, can I earn money if I go out on my own? Networking, people want to know what kind of networking they need to be engaged in. Do they need to be one of these people who is naturally outgoing? Having your own brand, Carol says, absolutely. Georgia says they know you have a large network. So they know I have a large network. So they think, oh, okay, he was born with that network. So, it's easy for him. Yeah. I'll go on to explain. That's not the case. They want to know if their method works, like if their schema or their mental model is correct. And therefore, if the actions that they're taking will actually sustain them in the long term, to use Corinne's language there. And it's a good question to ask, because if you have the wrong mindset, you're going to be in trouble before you even start. And tonight we're picking up the conversation from, if you're an HR professional and you're already in a job, you already have safe employment, you don't need to start a consulting firm right away. How do you start? Great answers. Okay, let's move on again. Okay, good to see the fingers working. And if it's not solved, if the problem isn't solved, what I've noticed is that those who aren't confident in having an answer for themselves that works end up being stuck. So I've worked with folks who are retiring, and for years they've talked about starting their own company and never got around to doing it. And some of them are colleagues that I had when I was back at AT&T as a 28-year-old when I started my own company. Some just end up worn out. They sort of get beat down, and eventually they stop talking the talk. And I hate to use the word sad, but I have a colleague who was an engineer like I was, trained engineer, and he was one of the most excited people about what he used to do. And I met him about 15 years ago, and he was a shadow of what I remember. He was already talking about retirement. And at that point, before he was 38, and I thought, boy, I remember when he was so full of life and loved what he was doing, and he cared so much about the oceans back then. And he had given that up. So one answer that people give when it comes to this business about where do you get clients from is just do it. I read a book, it was this book, is that you do what you love. All you need to do is trust, and the money will follow. And this was a very popular book back in the day. And there's still this conversation going around that all you need to do is find your passion and you'll be okay. Well, is this really just a passion problem? Or is this something that's deeper or more complex? I could tell you from experience, myself and others, it's more complex. Passion is great to have. Question is, where does it come from? And I'll explain that in just a minute, when it's used usefully. People often quote Steve Jobs, because in his famous speech at Stanford before he died, he said that, you've got to follow your dreams and follow what you love and follow your passion. But what he doesn't say is that as a 22 and 23-year-old, his passion was Zen Buddhism. He traveled to India and spent I think a year backpacking and following the gurus of the time. Could have been Hinduism, not sure. But he was heavily into spirituality, and that was his passion. It wasn't anything to do with software or hardware. Matter of fact, he was not a techie person. So he doesn't quite tell you the whole story. It took a while for it to become a passion. And tonight we're going to talk about that process of something becoming so powerfully a part of your life that you can make money from it. Okay, so what if I'm going to talk personally. What if you got to the end of your career and you never fulfilled that dream that you have of being a freelance and starting your own company and having your own thing? What if that were to happen? Let's talk emotions here. Get a bit real. We know the money bit, but let's talk how we would feel. Dreadful. Thank you, Sean. Unfulfilled, disappointed. Yes. Disappointed again. Yes. The notion of going to your deathbed having some potential kind of untapped, aimless. If you've ever been ever worked in a corporation where you felt as if you weren't heading anywhere and they weren't heading anywhere and everybody was happy not heading anywhere? That feeling of aimless, regret, and not having purpose. Yeah, okay, so we're on the right track here. Just keep typing them in. I'm gonna go ahead to the next one, but deep sense of loss. But what if you could start solving it today? I mean, today was the beginning of the end of the fear that that might happen. What would that be like? Now, I know we're not going to solve everything on world hunger and the challenge of your starting a consulting firm today, but we're talking about making a start. And experience tells me that Friday, we can start on some people Friday morning, some people Thursday night, but we can start long before weekends actually start. Why? Because in your mind, you've kind of already made a start. You've already made a mental shift. And that's what I'm out to hope will happen tonight, is that if you don't have that mental shift, or rather that you have that mental shift tonight, and that it starts now, even if you don't start your firm and you don't leave the job until 5 years' time or 10, because the shift can make you a very different professional starting today. And that's what we're about, causing this internal shift. Now, I'm not just talking about shifting and feeling good and shifting like, you got drunk on the joy of the possibility of your passion being fulfilled. No, I'm talking about shifting and taking action, because I'm going to ask you to take some actions tonight that are very concrete. So make sure you have something to write on, okay? Because I'm going to be throwing some big questions at you they're going to come at you fast. But where are you now? So I'd love to hear from you. Do you work for a company, or are you a consultant, or are you somewhere in between? Are you an internal consultant? If you could just type that in the chat, I'd love to get a sense of who we have. I know some of the names, and I know who some of us are. Some of you are. Labor relations, is that as an employee, Sean, or as a consultant? Carol, many, many years. Both, some of you straddling both. Okay, great. A professional in an oil field company, okay. Work for a company but have one client, so that's a transitioning to a full-time, I guess, a full-time career. Double hating, sure what that meant, Sean. Training manager, so that's working inside of a company. So it sounds as if some people here are like, quite a few are sort of, hatting, Julian, what's that? Hatting, does that mean double hatting, like you're doing both consulting and working for a full-time? Because I imagine there's more that's going to happen in the near future. Once, I know we're all anticipating that there's going to be some cuts as our economies go through the COVID shock. I know some folks have already lost jobs. So there could be more double hatting, if that's what Julian was referring to, where you actually play both roles. Great. So we have people who have all kinds of double jobs at the moment. So what I want to do is take us from where we don't know exactly what to do, where you actually have a strong start, and the transition. And this was a big aha for me when I wrote a five post series on the platform under the consulting topic. And the big aha for me as I was writing it was, I wish I had waited a bit longer to make the transition to being a consultant, to starting my own company. So this is coming from the idea that if you have a start, it doesn't mean quit tomorrow. It means now develop yourself in a peculiar kind of way that I'm going to talk about just now. So this is what I looked like back in 1993 or wherever. I was an internal consultant at AT&T, 100,000 employees, and it was the big phone company at the time. And I'm getting comments. Yeah. I got to move off of this slide. But I owned a company called Jamaica Tees on the side, which was a t-shirt company. So I knew how to sell t-shirts. Traveled from Florida to Maine, up and down the East Coast selling Jamaica reggae t-shirts, and had a ball doing it. I figured I knew something about sales. And then what happened was I started my own company and discovered that I knew nothing about consulting sales. Didn't quite make the difference, make the connection, didn't quite understand. But that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So here's the three things I want for you that I wish I had had early on. The first is a mindset shift. The second has to do with finding the organic needs that your clients have. And the third has to do with reaching them through special channels. So the things I didn't know that I wish I knew in terms of reaching clients. So this is the real question that people really want to know when they ask me, how do I get clients? So they might say, Francis, how do you get clients? But what they really want to know is, how will I find clients when my time comes? Because they're really concerned about their own future. And if they were to make the jump, would they want to be caught in this mindset of scarcity? So the question comes from this place of scarcity. It comes from searching for something outside of oneself. I believe that the answer to the concern or the anxiety lies in finding the clients out there somewhere, that they're there to be hunted and to be found, and then, kind of like finding the pea in the pod, or finding the one marble in the hundreds of marbles, or the needle in the haystack. I'm going to invite you into a different mindset. So here's what I want us to think about it. The first is, where will I find clients? Let's talk about the I, and then we're going to talk about the clients. Okay. I want to have you consider a different kind of thinking. So some folks just come from a place that's not empowering, where they've been a part of a workforce where they were told that essentially they were unworthy. And if they floated the idea with a colleague or a boss or someone whose opinion they respected, and told them, I'd really like to start my own company someday, people go, you? Good luck. And I got some of that when I started my own company. People would say, oh, risky. And in a way, I could have taken that on and said, oh, maybe it is, maybe I'm not. Because where you go with that is to second guess yourself. Now, that second guessing may never go away in your entire adult life as a consultant, but there are many tools that you could pick up so that you can get past the feelings that you are drowning, or that you don't have what it takes. And that all comes from an internal dialogue. I happen to use nowadays a technique from an author called Byron Katie. When those thoughts come up, I use it on those unwanted feelings that come when those thoughts come up. So as a consultant, the challenges are humongous, and you need a way to be able to deal with what looks often like 98% of the time failing and 2% of the time succeeding. All right, so there's passion, which we've already talked about. So passion, I've indicated, is good to have, and I'll show you a little bit later, it's just not enough. Good for you to have, but it actually doesn't make a difference, much difference for your clients if you show up as passionate all the time, because there's times when passion is just not the appropriate emotion for the moment. Okay. Possessing unique value. Okay. So here's something you can work on right away before you leave a company. What's the unique value that I bring? So here the control is going back to you, away from searching for clients all over the place. There's creating unique value that nobody else can duplicate. We're going to talk about that some more. But here's one that's a bit of a mind bend. So there's research that shows that happiness as an adult doesn't come from, and there's a list of all the things that people say: money, relationships by themselves, having living in a particular place, having a car, having a house, having all the things that people say, once I get that, then I'll be. Instead, there's something called social determination theory. And it actually fits in with where I'd like for consultants to go, which is to think about three things: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy, mastery, and purpose. That when you are at your best, you have space for autonomy, determining your own destiny. Mastery, getting better and seeing yourself make progress. And purpose, having a destination, having somewhere to head towards. Now, most companies don't, social determination theory, Latik, most companies don't train people in these three areas. But as a consultant, we'll see they're absolutely vital. And once again, it's not about starting your own company and then doing these things. It's about doing them now. Okay, so much for the I in the where will I find consultants. Let's talk about the clients, the other side of the what do I mean by clients in this context? Okay, so there are very different modes and ways to think about clients, and later on we will talk about clients in different ways. But here I want you to distinguish 4 kinds of buying that clients do. So first is buying an object, like you buy a pair of glasses. That's buying an object, right? Buying a service, like having someone cut your lawn or do your gardening. Person does something for you. Buying a relationship, you pay to travel with someone, maybe on a trip, like a tour guide, and they travel with you or they do something for you, and it requires you're working closely with them over a long period of time. So now their personality has something to do with the end result. And then finally, there's buying a transformation. Okay, what does that mean? That means that someone pays you to be different as a result of your working with them. That's more than a relationship. They're paying you to make a change happen that's profound in their life. So this is what coaches do, as you could imagine. Teachers do this also. And so do some HR consultants. Now, the reason I mentioned this here, I'm going to ask you for examples of all 4 in just a moment. So start to get that ticker ticking. The reason I mention it here is that most HR consulting tends towards the right side of the equation. The ones I think who produce the most value actually may sell an object, may sell a service, may sell a relationship, but they also provide a transformation. There's an awesome book about this whole process by Peter Block called Flawless Consulting that I was lucky enough to find early in my career. Peter, I'll say it slowly, Peter Block, Flawless Consulting. Strongly recommended. But let's kick up some examples of all 4 buying modes. So can you just type into the chat just an example of any one of the 4? The hardest one, of course, is to define buying a transformation. So let's see what you come up with. Buying an object is a book. Buying an object could be a policy, unless you're defining the policy for the client, then it could be a service. A dietitian, okay, is someone who is a transformation. They're selling a transformation, right? Car is an object, yes. A culture, buying a brand new culture from a consultant is certainly a transformation. An object is a house, yep. Service is training, could also be transformational, yep. Service could be coaching if it's not transformational. Relationship could be coaching as well. Some people hire coaches just to keep them, hold them to account. So I had a friend who was she was a fitness trainer, and she said she got so bored with it because all they were doing was buying a relationship from her, nothing else. Learning and development, a service. Relationship can be someone buying a therapist also, right? If it's not meant to be transformational. Yep. So you've got to be clear. The point of all of this is that long before you start your company, you've got to be clear what kind of service or product or relationship or transformation you're selling. So we're going to do an exercise in a minute to make that clear, because how you think about and how you sell and how you market and how you develop your autonomy, purpose, and mastery all depend on which one of these you decide to focus on. Okay? Mastering transformation is not the same as mastering the way an object works. They're very different. Okay? So you want to think about that, because as you think about it, you can then get into, okay, what benefit and result do I want my clients to get because I'm in that mode? And also, how do I sell that particular? How do I promote? How do I market? As I told one of my clients who was asking for a transformation, and she said, well, can you just send me a quote? And this was at 5 minutes. This wasn't a client, this was a prospect. After 5 minutes of conversation, can you just send me a quote? So I said, wait, what do you think I sell in patty? So I was just being feisty. But really what I was really saying was, when I sell a transformation, it just doesn't have like a price tag on it that I'm not selling an object that I leave behind and you never see me again. Instead, I'm selling you being different, and you being different requires a different level of trust. All right, so that's a very quick introduction to a very big topic. So here's a shift I invite you to take on. Moving from where can I find clients to how do I get them to come to me? And once again, it's ideal that you develop that second mindset long before you leave, and you actually have people coming to you long before you leave. So here's a great resource that I want to point you to. A book by Cal Newport called So Good They Can't Ignore You. It is an awesome book. And he's essentially talking about having them come to you. And he says the key to having them come to you is to become a craftsman with rare or valuable skills. So being a craftsman with rare or valuable skills. If I go back the 4 areas and I say there's a lot of people selling objects, there are very few people selling a transformation, because the skills of producing a transformation are very, very rare. And then the others fall in between. So there's lots of competition around buying objects, but very little around buying or selling a transformation. But anyway, I'm not pushing you necessarily to one or the other. I'm just saying that the game is to become a craftsman with rare or valuable skills that has people come to you. So I recommend the book highly. So that's the mindset shift. Shifting from clients out there to shifting to become someone who is essentially magnetic, so that they're drawn to you for some reason and they're able to see who you are and respond accordingly. All right, so let's talk about the clients some more. Because you could be a master craftsman, right? You could be really good. You could be a total expert at, pick something strange and kind of trivial. But so what if you're an expert at that? It doesn't necessarily mean that you will get any business or that you'll have a successful consulting career. Sean says birding. I think birding is a kind of, you could be a master craftsman at birding, but why would they hire you as their HR consultant? So you got to contend with, what do you intend to offer? So I want you to bring to mind, put yourself in that mode of, if you're not a consultant yet, you're still in a job, what would you offer? What do you intend to offer? And if you can write it down, because we're going to be doing some writing in the next couple of slides. If you're already a consultant, I want you to think about, what new product or service are you intending to offer? What's the brand new next thing that's going to come out of your shop? So for us, a year ago, we had never put on a virtual conference. In October, I was involved apprenticing basically someone else's virtual conference. I had presented at many virtual conferences, just never been on the inside looking out. In March, I put on a virtual conference that had 30-something speakers, 3 days, hundreds of people registering. And we're going to put on the next one in September. So in the year, we had to go through the entire process I'm going to share with you. And we had to think through, what do we want to offer? How do we want to offer it? And after I apprenticed, we knew that we wanted to do 2 different kinds of virtual conferences, one for productivity, one happened in March, and one for HR. Okay, so what do you intend to, there's some answers coming in. I'm seeing determining client needs, problem solving, organizational development. Yep. OD, lots of OD. Okay, great. Good start so far. Okay, all right, let's jump right into the details. So we're going to get into the nitty-gritty right now, time that we have left. Okay, so what do your clients need? So this is a needs and benefits model that I'm going to introduce you to. I'm going to go through each of the slides and then present them at the end. And I want you to actually write down answers and type them in as fast as you can. We have about half an hour left, so there's a lot of time for us to get this done. So what do your clients need? And the way I invite you to think about your clients' needs is inside of this construct. When I feel or need to something, I want to something so that, and this is for the client. Okay, this is not you. This is your clients. You're reading their minds and they're thinking, when I feel I want to, so that I can, so this is deep inside of their experience. Okay, we're traveling away from our experience and deeply into theirs. So I'll show you what I did. I did this exercise. We do it for all of the products that we develop, including this webinar. Every webinar, I go through this cycle of the needs benefits model. And here are the answers I came up with for folks who I wanted to appeal to, who I wanted to do this particular webinar. When I feel scared about starting my own company, I want help so that I know what to do. So you can see I'm using the construct, right? When I feel I want to, so that, okay? Or I want. When I feel concerned because no one knows who I am, I want to know how to build my brand so that I can get them calling me. Okay, so these are the folks who I felt were in companies and wanted to have a shift so that they could go out on their own, have their own consulting firm. When I feel inadequate, I want to know what worked for others so I can get busy rather than worrying. Okay, that's that 3-part construct. When I feel, I want to, so that. Okay, and this takes a bit of time to get into the client or the customer's world, but it's that first step. There's a second step. So they have this need and they don't have a way of fulfilling it. So you found something, an itch that they want to scratch, but they don't have anything to scratch it with. So instead of getting what they really want or need, they seek out some other kind of substitute. And that's what they are putting up with instead of getting their need met directly. So here's the one that I came up with for the consulting webinar. So if the webinar didn't exist, people would instead look to friends or family, or they would go to the internet and try and find someone talking about what it's like to make the transition from being a full-time employee to being a freelance consultant. Unfortunately, most of what they would find would be overseas, outside of the Caribbean, so it really wouldn't be culturally appropriate to what we have to go through here in the region. So these are the only 3 I could think of, and I really racked my brain to think, somebody wanted to start their company, where would they get help? So I know the books I read, but the books were all written outside of our area. So that's a second question, okay? So having answered those 2 questions, there is kind of a yes or no at this point. Is there really an unmet need? And if the answer is yes, you keep going. So when I did it, the answer was yes, so I kept going. If you offer this new product or service or relationship or transformation, I'm using the 4 modes once again, what would it be and what features would it include? So the features of a product, service, relationship, or transformation are just the basic factual building blocks. Like the car is red. The transformation takes 3 days. The relationship works by communication, which takes place over the phone, and we never meet in person. Or the service involves my coming in and leading 3 training sessions. Okay, those are features. So here are the features I came up with for this webinar. That it would be free, that it would be followed by 5 sessions of coaching in a closed circle that would be private. Actually, these actually apply to the coaching circle that comes after, not really this, but it's all one continuum. It would take place in a small group, so less than 10 people in our case. There would be practical exercises in the coaching circle, and there would be positive stories. Okay, and then the focus would be on having them come to you, not the finding clients. So I came up with the features, and I said, okay, so if those are the features, not enough. When you're talking about features to people, they want to know what those features actually do. Okay, and Georgia says fab. features, attributes, benefit. Nice. Yeah, that's exactly where we're going here. What advantages does these features provide the client? Actually, what do they do? And the language to use here is so that. This makes it very easy for me anyway. I stole the idea from a guy called Michel Fortin or Fortin. I can point you to some articles I've written on the topic if you want to know more. So you're thinking about what the features translate into. So you came up with the features, but what do they really do for the client? So here are the ones I came up with, give you an idea. It's free so that you can explore the topic without reservation and without risk. You're not making a monetary investment. There are 5 sessions so that you can take a deep dive. You can see I'm using the so that. Private, no one needs to know your business other than the people in your private group. Small group so that you can get and give good advice, you don't get lost. Practical, so that you're actually doing real work, not just theoretical. And positive stories that are inspiring. So Michelle says, what is their pain point? So it's exactly where we're heading here. The need is the pain point, and the features and the advantages are what you're thinking will address that pain point. And finally, benefits. What benefits do those features really mean to the client? So this goes beyond what do they do and what do they actually mean. And here are the ones I came up with. Ooh, that's a small, I'm going to turn off my camera real quick so that I can blow up the screen so that you can see that. Sorry about the type size there. It's really small. Free means that you can explore the world of making consulting income without regret or wasting money. Deep dives means that you have time to really think, learn, and apply. Private, so that you can share without being scoffed at or offending anyone else. Small groups, so that you get exactly what you need rather than generic platitudes. And you see I'm using the means that language all the way through. So using the language is really important. It helps you clarify exactly where you're headed and why. And so why is this sequence important? And this is a sequence I'd like for you to go into the chat. I'm going to shrink back okay, here we go again. So as you think about your product or service, if you could answer that first question, or any other, but if you could answer that first question, that thing that you want to provide, what is your client going through? What is your client experiencing? So what would your client say that they're feeling that they have that they want to, so that? What's that itch that they want to scratch? What's that pain point? Okay, let's get some answers up. Just type away in the chat. Cut costs. So but you got to complete the sentence there. When I feel I want to, so that. When I feel I don't know who to hire. Okay, that's a beginning. Yep. I think Ahmad hit return before sentence was finished. When I feel like I don't know who to hire, there's an I want to. Waiting here for some more examples of answering question number 1. No audio, no visual at the present. Oh, sorry about that. I think when I switched over from presentation to a video, and I switched over the video, I think there's a lag sometimes. If you're having a problem, refresh your screen, okay? And you're still not hearing me or seeing me, let me say, I'm going to type it in the chat. Refresh your screen if no audio or video persists. Refreshing your screen is a big secret here at Remo. It solves all the problems. Okay, so Ahmad finishes the sentence and says, I'm going to go up to the top. When I feel like I don't know who to hire, I want to know who to hire so that I can get someone in the role. Great. Juden says, when I feel or need to improve my company culture, I want to invest in it so that I can grow my people and business. Yup. And when I need to discipline an employee, I want to know how to do it correctly so that I don't do it incorrectly. Great. That's a great first. They're all, you can hear that as a first cut. The first time you write it, you're just writing it to get it done. And then you can say, okay, I could deepen, make this sharper, because you're really looking for a particular kind of problem to solve. Now, this is not in theory, okay? You shouldn't leave your job, your nice, safe job as an HR manager until you have some very, very sharp needs that you can fulfill, that your client is not fulfilling through some other means. Okay, this is where, if you want to be successful, you've got to stand out, and you have to be able to define why they should come to you, for yourself first, but also for the world. Defining what specific need, emotional need, is not being met that you can meet is absolutely crucial to your success. And by the way, this has nothing to do with experience per se, because some people tell me, well, okay, I need to be a lot older in order to have this kind of experience. That's not true at all. There's some companies who value younger people. There's some companies who want younger people. Put back on the camera for this. They want younger people because they want the energy that young people bring. They don't want people like me in their 50s and people in their, they want a fresh perspective. And that's something that when you're younger, often don't realize that that's something. They want that kind of fresh energy. Okay. All right. A couple other good ones came up. When I feel we flatlined, I want to know what incentives I can implement so that growth is rebooted again. Excellent. And that's very COVID, right? Very, very true today. When I feel that employees are not engaged, I want to motivate them so that I can have a more productive workforce. Great. My staff is not performing. I want them to have the right training so that they could really improve the department. Yes, great. That's all great. Great. I'm going to steal some of these. Are great. All right, there's so many of them. Okay, we're going to move on. Okay. So again, the point is not, this is not theory. I'm turning on the light in front of you so that you get a better view. This is all about finding a really sharp need, a well-defined pain point that would give you the courage to go leave that job and that steady paycheck. Because you don't want to leave and just become like a consultant who does what everybody else does. Because you're not going to get hired. And I kind of know this from personal experience because I did it that way. Had a client when I left, but didn't do anything in particular at a level that was high enough. And I didn't understand the pain point, or I didn't understand the special needs that my clients had with enough depth to be able to pursue it surgically. So ended up floundering. I actually ended up doing the kind of work I didn't think I wanted to do, but it was the kind of work that I happened to be good at. And there were a few people who knew I was really good at it, so I could meet their need. All right. Finally, let's talk about channels. So we've talked about how good you can be and how good you need to be so that you can be attractive. Talk about focusing that attraction in a very tight way so that it targets a client's need. Let's talk about channels. So let's talk about in a very roundabout way and talk about earnings. So back in about 1991 or so, I did a consulting training course in New York. Very fortunate to do it. Didn't realize it at the time. Thought it was really boring, but came away with a couple of things I want to share. One is that if you were to do a graph of consultants' earnings, you would expect it to have a normal distribution like it shows in the graph. You would expect, there'd be some who earn a little bit, some who earn a lot, and most people in the middle, right? Normal distribution that you learn in statistics. But here's the reality. It's actually bimodal. There's actually a group clustering at the low end and a group clustering at the high end and no one in between. So fortunately for us, people who did the study went the next step and asked, well, what are folks in each hump, each area of the distribution peak? What are they doing? So the ones at the low end are doing the following techniques: cold calls, giveaways, direct mailing, and free diagnostics. So remember, this is back in 1991. And for those of you who are really young, there was no internet back in 1991, 92. It was just a figment of our, there was no email. It was a whole different world. So cold calls these were the techniques that consultants used at the time. And if you think these have something to do with scarcity, yeah, you're right. And then on the high end, here's what the research showed. The ones who were more effective engaged in article writing, books, newsletters. They gave lectures and speeches. So when after I left AT&T and started my own company, I went back and dug up this research. And years later, I wish I had taken it seriously because I would have done things a lot differently. I knew I needed to write a book. It took me about 20 years, 15, 20, a long time to get to write a book. So I've written 2 books now, but it took me a much, much, much longer than I thought. I knew that I wanted to write for a mass audience. That took, when blogs came out, I was so happy because I could write, but now I have a Gleaner column that comes out every other week in the business section. That took 20 or 18 years to get to. Took a very, very long time. And these are things I wish I knew before, because I would have implemented them far earlier. So I also, after I left, I realized I needed to improve the speeches that I gave, improve my presentation skills. I joined an organization and I did free training for them for about 5 years straight on almost a weekly basis. And they had heavy duty coaching as a part of the package. So when you do that many speeches and you get that much quality feedback, you tend to get a little better, right? So Cal Newport's book, I want to refine something he said, something he relies on, and we're going to take some questions. Just a minute. How do you execute the fundamentals of your chosen discipline? So his argument is that the way you become so good is that you execute the fundamentals of your discipline at this very, very high level. I don't agree with him entirely. That's sufficient, but it's necessary, but it's not sufficient. And he's a really good example of that. If you actually go to his website, you could see. So here's the thing I've added in, this additional skill he doesn't really emphasize in his book. When you become so good at being visible, they can't ignore you. So you need to be a master craftsman, but you also need to be comfortable at becoming visible and becoming increasingly visible. This is what the research shows us from 1991. Now, in today's world, it doesn't mean what it meant back then. But here in the Caribbean, most countries have a saying which is similar to the one here in Jamaica, which is that the more monkey climb, the more I'm exposed, right? I don't know what it might be in your country, but there's a kind of a thought that you should be careful and you should consider the risks, and it's uncomfortable to put yourself out there with your ideas. There's also the idea that when you put your ideas out there, that somebody will steal them. So I wrote an article about that for one of my columns, which said, I don't believe it, and feel free to steal everything I do. So these are some of the challenges that we have here in the region around promoting oneself, about being visible. And I've got to tell you that they are essential. These challenges are essential to overcome if you want to be in the consulting game for the long term. Now, we're fortunate because we have a gazillion different channels to choose from when it comes to being visible. The prevailing idea among people who are in the marketing world is that you don't try to master all of them because you can't. Instead, you pick a small handful and you master them instead. So I mentioned creating virtual conferences here in the region, big conferences, not just small webinars, but multi-day, tens of speakers, hundreds of people conferences. This is what we're creating for the HR conference in September. So we here in my company at Caribbean HR Forum, we're learning how to do that. at this level. In the past week, I got to tell you, I also learned a brand new one, which is LinkedIn events. So I didn't even know you could create events in LinkedIn. I think it's a new feature because I've never seen it before. I could be wrong, but we had about 149 people register for this webinar through just LinkedIn events. It's the reason that we have a full house tonight. I see there are 48 people, which means that we're maxing out on our platform, which can only hold 50. So folks are watching us on YouTube because of LinkedIn events. I was able to reach about 1,000 people in my own network who are only HR professionals by inviting them to this event. So this game of becoming visible is constantly changing and requires new technology. And it's one that I can tell you from doing Facebook, Google, Instagram, and Quora ads did all 4 of them for the first time this year in the new dispensation. I did them years ago, but had to relearn how to do them all over again. Some of these things are hard to learn, and you must commit to mastering them. So these special channels are essential, but they're not the whole game. The game of becoming someone who has people come to you involves this mindset shift. It involves understanding the needs, and it involves using these channels that are popping up every day. And people ask me, I need to leave my job, right, to really, and I say, no, you don't. You have all kinds of resources at your fingertips right now that you may not appreciate. You have security of a job. You have colleagues that you can ask questions of every single day. You have the resources of your company. You have a desk, a chair, you have the internet, you have maybe not free lunch, but you have a cafeteria, you have a place to park. You have all these good things that you may not even consider to be resources at the moment. I certainly took them for granted when I was an employee. But here's the biggest resource that you have. It's time. Time. You have the time to develop the big 3: autonomy, purpose, and mastery. And Cal Newport makes the point that you should always be, in whatever job you're in, looking for more autonomy, more purpose, and more mastery. And he says, in a good economy, if you find those shrinking rather than growing, you need to be in a different job. You need to look for a different job where you get more autonomy, more purpose, and more mastery. Commit yourself to developing those, and bam, you'd be the kind of person who has the right mindset, and you'll actually start doing the kind of things that would attract clients to you long before you actually leave. Because there's nothing I've said tonight that you can't do while you're an employee. And the point is, do as much of it as possible so that your clients are attracted to you long before, so that they're begging you to leave your job and come and do work for them as a freelancer. Okay, so in terms of next steps, complimentary coaching circle. It starts a week from today, but the applications start as of tonight. You can apply to be one of 10 folks who join me in this private group. And Tracy's group, if you were in the webinar last week, Tracy's group, as I mentioned before, is also open for registration, for applications. That's the link to her group. Here we go. That's the link. I think she's going for 8 weeks. However, it's not 5 weeks, but similar setup. So once again, it's absolutely free, and we invite you to jump in. And there's also a survey, an employee engagement survey that's going to be shared on the platform as of tomorrow. Dr. Kwame Charles is doing it across the region. Look for, I think it's already been shared on the WhatsApp group, but look for it on the platform starting maybe Friday or so. Okay. All right. So we're going to flip over to the networking part of the evening, and I'm going to give you a couple of questions to answer. So this is going to require us to log out from here and go to a different URL. So that URL at the top is the one that you want to use. https://bit.ly/ Part 2 Consulting. Okay, I didn't even open it for myself yet. Huh, how funny. But let me put it, I'll put it in the chat so you can open it for yourself. So we're going to go over to that. Let me use the same link. 1 second. Add my, great, it's in the chat. I'm going to take questions up until for the next 5 minutes or so until we're finished here. We have 5 minutes of questions. If you have questions, put them in the Q&A, and I'm going to be looking at them in just a moment. And you can stay as long as you like or as short as you'd like when we go into conference mode. Getting a note, okay. Just before I jump over, I think I should also thank our volunteers. I may not remember all the names because we rely so heavily on volunteers here at Carib HR Forum. Dale and I have gotten so much value from volunteering ourselves. That's one of the gifts that we wanted to give away. But Sean is our newest volunteer as a greeter, and Demar, and I can see, I'm not gonna remember all the names. I'm sorry, guys. Oh, I should have made a list, right? Oh, I would ask Dale to Rika, yes, Rika, of course, and big thanks to them, and Danielle, yes, they're a team of greeters. Thanks to them for what they're providing us right now. So, question is, how do you sign up for the conference? It's at virtualconf.caribhrforum.com. Okay, so here are the questions I want you to discuss in the second part of the evening at the new link. So remember, this is the link one more time. Let's click on that. So here are the questions I want us to discuss. So you'll be at different tables, as you see. If you're new to our conference capabilities, or if you're on YouTube, you can come over. There's a limit of 50 people. However, so you'd want to jump right in as soon as you can. Make sure that I'm in. Oh, I'm not in yet. Okay, I got to log out from this event first. Okay. So here's the 3 questions that we're going to be answering over in the conference mode. And as you go into conference mode, I'm going to point out a couple of things. One is to make sure you turn on your camera and your microphone at the bottom so that you can actually talk to people and they can actually see you. And finally, I've put in something new at the top, which is a video, which has some technical tips. So you can watch this video and you'll be the only person watching it, or your table will be the only table watching it if you're to watch that video. It's a very short one. I think it's about 4 minutes long. Okay. All right. I think that's it for my bit. You can type that in. We have about 2 minutes left. Let me see if you have any questions. I'm going to go over to the Q&A. Okay, we have all of the preliminary questions that we had. How to balance your existing job while doing consultancy? Okay, that's not a question that I could answer here, but if you come over to my productivity training and to my community, I have a community like this in the productivity world. I would recommend it. I'm answering Tracy's question. I'm going to put the URL in there, Tracy, for you. multitaskers.scheduleu.org, or just scheduleu.org, answering the question there. Yep. Okay. Any other questions? Or these are answers. Trying to get an HR here in the USC. I do some HR consultancy on my own. Okay, not so much. Okay, I don't see any further questions apart from Tracy's. So the system is going to boot us off in just a minute. So I'm going to just stop the recording at this point, and thank you so much for your participation. You participated so heavily that I barely kept up. And we're going to jump and go over to the other room. Remember, if you have any technical issues, to go and watch that quick video at the top. Okay, so I'm going to stop the